Welcome to the beginning of our next long-form series in the Conan universe. Here, we'll be covering the magic, mysticism, and of course sorcery in the age of high adventure. We already have a thematic in-character introduction to this subject, which I highly suggest you watch first to get you in the magic mood. It's taken a while to compile and then classify the schools of magic. For this system I'll be using in this series, we'll be looking at the magic subsystems or schools by their method of energy transference, thus how reality is warped in line with the magic in question. It's important to remember that while this system does line up with all displays of magic throughout Conan lore that I could find, it is merely a soft classification which you can change or do away with at any time as you so desire. My source list is clearly linked below, and I claim no lore master status. I may get things wrong. Now, let's go through an overview of the types of magic and all the schools we'll be covering in this series. Unfurl your scrolls, open your ancient tomes, and gather your totems as we begin. Grimdark.
Half off!
If you'd like to see my progress as I make new content, enlist today through YouTube memberships or Patreon to become a soldier in the Grimdark Legion. My thanks to the men and women who've already served, whose names are listed here. You keep darkness at an affordable price. The wide variety of magic we see in Conan is dramatic, making it very homebrew friendly, even more so than the reskins or reflavoring we see in D&D. No matter how odd or different, you can always whittle down all magic into three types: totem, skill, and patron. Totem magic utilizes an object as a third party in the magical process, usually charging the object in question through meditation or prayer, allowing it to act as a focus or center of power that, when released, creates the reality-altering effect. The totem can be made of anything, but is symbolic, just like the real-world psychological mechanism of toteming, of the archetype that magic user embodies. So for instance, the bear shaman embodies the bear, they use a bear totem. That's the example. They represent a bear archetype. An archetype is something that's so much itself you'd get angry if someone told you it wasn't the case. To further explain this concept, if I told you that there's this thing that I open, if I twist a knob or handle and open this thing and then go through, it lets me move from room to room, you'd clearly know I'm talking about a door. But if I said that it wasn't a door, every time you said it was a door, you'd get pretty angry at me. That's how you know you're talking about an archetype. This meaning is subjective to the caster in question, but regardless acts as the door for reality warping. Skill-based magic, which I previously called manipulation, starts as a demonstratable skill. Its initial physical effect from physical action is the gateway that, when charged with energy, acts as the beginning of the reality warping effect, which can be increased in intensity through concentration in the moment. Once the momentum from the initial physical action and spell has died, a new physical action is required to jumpstart the magical or spellcasting process again. I'll read that again. Once the initial physical action and spell has died down, a new physical action is required to jumpstart the magic or spellcasting process again. This type of magic emphasizes one's true knowledge of reality warping. Patron magic can be most likened to the warlocks of Dungeons & Dragons, as an external entity is used as a source of power to which the caster has already sacrificed some aspect of themselves, losing individuality or their own sense of will for more powerful magic. If totem users knock on the door of magic politely asking to get in, skill magic users turn the handle of the door walking through on their own after forging their own key. Then patron magic users go and get an army to break down that same door with overwhelming might to get in, with an army they sold a kidney to afford. So in summary, for my theory of magic types here, think totem equals knocking on the door, skill equals putting a key in the door and turning the handle, and patron equals paying workers to break down the door at a high price. Within the totem type of magic lie the schools of shamanism, necromancy, sealing, enchanting, runic, the Mayapan-specific druidism, and dream. Shamans charge totems resembling an animal they hope to embody, releasing that energy to gain the strength or claws of a bear or the immunity to a scorpion's poison. Necromancers charge a totem crafted from some form of death, like bone or certain crystals which resemble death, with the necrotic energies found in graveyards or war zones along with their own soul, then release that energy into spells to raise the dead as abominations, often being amalgams of dark spirits from beyond the grave and rotting flesh. Enchanting and sealing magic both utilize totems as prisons for magical power, which, through magical signs, are either meant to completely seal the entity within, thus sealing magic, or channel the magic within into a specific effect, like Zofra's flying sword, also called the Sword of Skelos, thus enchanting. Runic magic charges power into most often stone totems, which said rune, whether Nordheimer or Acheronian, creating the effect of a very specific spell upon which losing the item also loses access to the spell until the rune can be carved into a new totem, hence why rings and bracelets are very common totems for this school of magic. Druidism utilizes similar totems and beliefs to shamanism, only instead of leaning on the human side of respecting the forms of nature, it leans into the bestial being, able to call forth animal spirits to defend one's family or tribe as manifested phantasms, with the downside of leaving the caster themselves largely defenseless. Dream magic charges energies from the dreamlands, known as Kuth, the Star Girdle, into a totem that is half an earthly object and half a creation of dream, that when the energy is released acts as a gateway for reality warping in line with the dreamer's desire. Within the skill type of magic exists elementalism, aka ecocentric, mesmerism, demonology, templarism, hemomancy, aka Acheronian blood magic, along with the honorary school of mummery and my own theoretical school of super soldier. Elementalism starts as some form of survivalist mastery correlating to one of the four elements: fire, earth, water, or air. Eventually, study of the magical arts allows for the correlating magic to the skill through the making of certain hand motions and calling out to it. Lighting a torch, then calling out to the sun, and holding out the torch like a bow ready to fire, creates a personalized pyromantic fireball spell, for example. Mesmerism starts as the skill of sleight of hand, as well as hypnotism, leading into the discovery of the lines where perception and magic meet, allowing one in the moment to make someone think they are a chicken, put them to sleep, or make them see their worst fears that aren't really there. Demonology starts as the skill of identifying demons, which then leads into knowledge of how to perform an exorcism or get rid of minor evil spirits when they are possessing a person. Then finally accelerates within further knowledge into summoning of true demons, first minor then major, as one learns how they think and what motivates them. Templarism starts with a martial understanding of life force energy under the names prana, mana, ki, chi, or anima, then moves into a knowledge of the soul and likely already smaller rituals to allow for more vitality. This behavior ramps up until one finally undergoes a ritual to cut out half of their soul, which could be thought of as making room for more supernatural or psychic muscle mass, becoming a psychic vampire soldier known as a Dark Templar. Blood magic was originally developed as a side school of demonology during the Acheronian Empire and during its fall, to empower the soldiers, demons, or necromantic creations with biochemical reactions that act as a performance enhancer at the cost of them going into a berserk state. It was then reverse engineered for its medicinal benefits. As you can imagine, this school started as a high-level understanding of blood, eventually moving into bloodletting as the activating momentum for the magic effects to begin. So that means like cutting someone open or cutting yourself open. Mummery is an honorary school of magic, as its very definition is to imitate magic in a way that would be beneficial to a snake oil salesman or an actual gravekeeper or someone who has to work with a profession like mummifying that is close to magic but not magical itself. They are a collection of magic-adjacent skills that give one a mystical air about them, usually again used for con artistry, with the school's name coming from the mistaking of those dressing corpses for burial as true necromancers from ignorant villagers. Super Soldier is a theory I have for how warrior characters can keep up with and beat magic ones despite not technically casting any spells. Basically, your body and mind are pushed to the extreme in a fight or flight state in a prolonged condition during battle, creating an out-of-body experience which effectively creates a kind of emotion magic, using these extreme emotions as fuel to increase the function of the body. The reason it's in this category is that the more you do it, the better you get at it in times of danger. The athlete's high form of joy of battle, the sadism of a berserk state, the fear of danger, anger at harm done to you, and empathetic heroic belief in what one is doing is all blended together while facing a near-death state for a longer period of time than any human should be able to survive. This is what creates this effect. Again, this is just a theory, but it makes sense for the universe. It also makes sense for Conan specifically because he's been at war since the time of his very, very early childhood. Within the Patron type of magic are a near unlimited number of god or powerful spirit-specific schools, but of those, the ones we have observed are heraldry, tempistism, mysticism or divine, next what we'll call arachnomancy, and exocentric or elder magic. Heralds are related to demon gods, to which they sacrifice half of their soul to become half demons, whose powers differ based on the demon god. The most famous example of this are the Heralds of Zotli, who is a god of destruction, gifting his heralds with the ability to take on a form in battle that is a humanoid version of the brimstone fire squid, in which his abilities like fire breathing and increased dexterity are possible in the human form. Tempists are connected to the misanthropic snake god Set as his priests of self-focused Machiavellianism. They use his powers to take on the form of a giant snake or serpent man, command snakes in his name, as well as use the powers of storm to attack with the lightning and heal others of the same faith, one would assume, with localized thunder. Mysticism or divine magic is usually associated with the god Mitra, who is loosely connected to the development of all three Abrahamic faiths later in history, or is connected to a god that is related to Mitra in some way, like Ibis, who is his Stygian incarnation, Asura, who is his father in the Vendhyan pantheon, or Bori, who is theorized to be one of his sons in the old Hyperborean culture, before their decline under the Witch Queen. Like demonology, one is capable of performing exorcisms with this school of magic, but even more powerful, causing a person to lift off the ground as an Ankh symbol is burned into their chest, while they are smited for their evil deeds or purified of evil spirits if they were possessed, literally burning the evil out of them with holy light. Other than this, healing others mystically and the increase in one's own physical strength when working for the will of Mitra or adjacent entities is fairly common. While not all priests of Mitra are capable of this magic, most users of this magic are priests of this deity in some way, again, or related deities. Arachnomancy is the special worship of Zath, sometimes under the name Om or Yazud, either as a monotheistic demon religion, as a trinity, or of three spider gods differentiated in a polytheistic faith. After devoting oneself to Zath, you are able to summon, command, and seek aid from common spiders, giant spiders known as Children of Zath, four-armed spider-men known as the Children of Om, and great abominable demon spiders who are theoretically the children of Yazud and Set. So Yazud, which was the female incarnation of Zath or Om, who was the wife of Set during the time when Yazud was worshipped. Now Yazud was also worshipped in Zamora right before Zath became his new incarnation. I genuinely do love that there is basically an entire sub-school of demonology based around the very specifically summoning of arachnophobia in one's enemies. It's great. Elder magic is much like heraldry, except giving oneself over fully to the worship of one or many great old ones or outer gods. In return, they will allow you to bond with the eldritch energies beyond space and time that will allow you to conjure forth blasts of dark eldritch, that sort of green mystical power, or tame the transforming abominations known as shoggoths, while in addition gifting you with beneficial mutations that will effectively act as passives in-game, such as the near agelessness common to both Dagon as well as Cthulhu worshippers, though the Dagon version of that comes with fish sex, and I don't know if you want fish sex, or the regenerative healing as one slowly becomes an amalgam of animal parts under the black goat of the woods, whose name we can't say for legal purposes now, called Ishtar in her Conan interpretation. Now, let's move on to a little bit more on how these schools overlap when you're learning about them. Despite the names various different magic classes in Conan have, they are by no means restricted to just the one school of magic they're named after. Within the 8 to a dozen years most magic users need to get a decently powerful foundation in their respective field of sorcery, they will most commonly develop 2 major and 1 minor magical school proficiencies. A great example of this will be the necromancer whose majors are first necromancy, but this has great synergy with their second major of cryomantic elementalism due to the fact that the heat escaping from a dead body can act as the beginning for an ice spell in line with what we just talked about, skill magic needing a physical catalyst to begin. Lastly, they also mix dark spirits into their higher level flesh abominations, which means they have an overlap minor knowledge in demonology. For our second example, let's go into true demonologists. While they major in demonology, the sulfuric explosions that occur when summoning demons act as the beginning for a pyromantic elementalism fireball spell, usually called Hellfire. Finally, it is characteristic of demonologists in the name of safety to focus on quality over quantity, with higher level summons of demons being harder to control either due to intelligence, power, or both, which a minor in mesmerism greatly helps them deal with. A great way to identify a magic class you want to create or homebrew's majors are the types of spells they actively do in combat as their majors, again, and then their minor is informed by what they would situationally know or know as a matter of environmental consequence. They don't actively use it, but they have to know something about it just to kind of survive. Mesmerism comes naturally to the demonologist because they've been having to actually study how to tempt demons into beneficial deals with them for their entire career, and demonology comes naturally to necromancers because they are always on the lookout for ways to turn their paper tiger army of lesser undead into something much stronger and long-lasting, which naturally leads to empowering them with parts of obliterated demons or, destroyed demons that are existing in the atmosphere, taking some of those parts and including them with the flesh abominations, or lesser demons that are easier to control, but you're possessing them into an already existing flesh abomination which is loyal to you, so it's empowered a little more. Of course, another way to overlap them if you wanted necromancy to be more unique is you could fuse it with blood magic. That would also be cool because it would be, zombies on steroids, literally. For demonstration purposes, both of these examples can also be found in the Age of Conan MMO. As a refresher, of the many reasons the humans of Conan don't believe in things like beastmen, for example, or the supernatural, it comes down to 7 points we went over in one of the earliest videos of this channel, why Conan is low fantasy. Point 1, they live in unlivable places. Point 2, very few humans can learn magic. Point 3, very, very few can learn magic. Point 4, they are far away. Point 5, they hate you, meaning if you see them it's probably because there are enough of them to kill you or they're strong enough to kill you. Point 6, they are strong, again, they will kill you. Point 7, you hate them, so if you outnumber them, you will kill them, and then you will all pretend and slowly forget you didn't see that because you're scared out of your mind. If I was going to add a point 8 relevant for our subject today, I'd say that swindlers or mummerers are very common. If you're role-playing an atheist materialist character in Conan, it might be because their earliest experience with religion or magic was some con artist pretending to be a high priest that stole their family's fortune, resulting in them being in debt slavery or worse. The reason I reiterate these points is a springboard for our bullet points to answer the question of how people in this setting still deny the existence of magic. Thinking about this question is what made me include the example of Zamoran arachnomancy. As part of Zamoran culture and military use, it is known that they employ the use of specifically bred giant spiders that are also symbolic of their national religion. However, to the outside world, giant spiders as well as various other megafauna are an expected part of the world they live in. However, the magic part is debatable to the public. The true power of Zamoran priests of Zath comes from their appeal to the traditions of the nation they live in. Only those with true training as priests and heralds of Zath would understand the true nature of how these beasts are controlled and appeased into subservience. Let's apply this same cultural lens to the various political parties one can find in modern Stygia, such as the Thoth-Amon-led Black Ring or the Acheronian Revivalists. The current dramatic wealth uptick in Stygia is credited to the leadership of the Snake Pope himself, Thoth-Amon, and this is what has led to the cultural change towards the worship of Set being commonly promoted in society. It simply is the thing that all the successful people are doing, so we're going to do it too. Also, they'll probably execute us if we don't. The Black Ring acts as figures heavily politically and culturally connected to both Thoth-Amon's leadership and this cultural revolution, again connected to economic upticks for the civilization, hence where their social trust is derived from among the previously impoverished people. The same can be said of the Acheronian Revivalists, who believe an altered version of history where they are the descendants of the elder race denizens of the great fallen demon empire rather than the reality of them being descendants from their Lemurian slaves. This has captured the minds of the misguided Stygian youth, who view bringing back the empire as an enlightened pursuit or utopian goal. Again, this kind of thing that's very prominent in Middle Eastern Conan nations, this idea of magic and all things supernatural and all things dark actually being misunderstood, and this is because of the current state of Stygia heavily influencing its neighboring nations. Utopian goal, hence where they draw their social power, again, the idealism of youth. Here you can see in all three examples that if a sorcerer attains power, even if he or she does so publicly with the use of sorcery, the people who don't believe in magic unless they start researching it for themselves will still find a way to not believe. People who keep an open mind, which is most, will hedge their bets on maybe sorcery being real, but there are too many con artists out there to trust anyone, and some fundamentalists will insist magic is present, even when it very obviously is not, which will, in turn, through public displays of hysteria, more or less reinforce most people who believe that magic is either very rare or not existing at all. Another thing that explains this is points 2 and 3 of our old list. If you know magic, it's either because you were brought up in the education of culturally sanctioned positions, like the court mages of Tehran, who are also lawyers, part of the secret cult, or secret cults, which have more or less cover identities as either a political party or average criminal group of bandits. Finally, you could also learn in very rare cases from discovering a tome of knowledge on the subject like a copy of the famed Book of Skylos, and acting as an autodidact or self-taught sorcerer. In any case, in addition to getting the very rare chance to learn magic, you also need the time to learn it. That means not just, I have a book, the knowledge is magically transferred to me. It's also not the beginning of a long, long education. Given nothing but time to learn your specific spellcraft, it still took around 8 to 12 years just for Thoth-Amon, the sorcerer savant to Conan's war genius, to reach that beginning level. But if you factor in also having a social life, meaning you're doing this in secret, or a profession you have to work at where you have to learn this in secret, again, it's all your free time, it can take upwards of 20 years to gain a foundation in whatever type of magic you are seeking to gain power in. Now, before we go any further, I just want to comment on how much flavor this adds to you playing a magical character, and how much flavor this adds to, in our Sword and Sorcery universe, sorcerers being these older people. Unless you started literally when you were born, there's no way really to be a young sorcerer. You just finished studying, you're 30 years old, you started when you were 10, that's like the earliest I would accept, because It really is this iconic image of the old sorcerer who spent his whole life, sacrificed his social life. One of the big things about most sorcerer characters, really rich sorcerer characters, and I don't mean economically, I mean rich in story, are people who sacrificed everything socially to be here. They don't have children. They don't have a legacy. All they have is the world they can affect around them with the reality warping effects that while you were getting a girlfriend, he was studying the fireball. While you were going to prom, he was studying the fireball. While you were getting a job and that promotion at work, he was studying the fireball and sucking dick for gold coins to live in an inn. He was doing it. To summarize, let's make some more bullet points. Point 1. Humans like control. Point 2. Magic existing is admitting that most people don't have control. Point 3. Belief runs strong in the Conan universe. If someone believes something, they will still believe it even after surviving a hellfire attack to the face. An example of this is how Crom basically more or less helped Conan when he was about to be executed. This is actually an example brought up to me by Jackinator in the Discord. In the Conan Dark Horse comics, Conan was about to be executed. He called out for Crom for aid. Crom aided him by sending down lightning to stop his execution. Everyone stopped his execution, and Conan just still considered it a coincidence because there's no way Crom would have helped him. In reality, throughout the comics, he was a favored of Crom very commonly. Point 4. Very few people get the opportunity to learn magic. Point 5. Very few people have the time to make use of that opportunity. Point 6. Battle hysteria and general hysterics are an accepted part of daily life for the people of the Hyborian Age. What this means is that using the ending of The Frost Giant's Daughter as an example, where it was all theoretically a dream, it is expected that people will have hallucinations during war, making the stories of veterans less likely to be believed even when there are multiple witnesses. It's just group hysteria or group crazy talk to the local innkeeper. People also assume this to happen during animal attacks, which is why no one believes that you were attacked by a cursed demonic werebear, just a normal grizzly, which is scary enough in its own right to most people. It's important to remember also that with the exception of enchanting or sealing magic in most cases, when a sorcerer leaves an area or dies, so too does the effect of their spell, restoring the reality-warped area to normal as though nothing happened. There may be evidence that someone was burned to death, but not that it was done through magic. You know, it wasn't really done through a fireball. They tied him up clearly and they burned him alive, and the ropes disintegrated in the fire, and that's probably what happened. To finish this section without first-hand, in-the-moment experience, most people are likely to tell you that you and your friends just had a nightmare, a group hysteria, you were seeing things, or you just had a bit too much to drink that night. Going back to our rule that magical effects leave the area when the actual magic caster does, obviously the people this most affects are higher level dream magic users, because dream magic is literally reality warping. So utilizing dream magic, let's say you unironically conjured a fantasy bridge, some bridge out of Tolkien, for your friends to walk across made of magic white bricks. Well, that magic white bricked bridge then dies, even though people have been using it for 3 days. And now the magic has finally faded, and some random cart user and vendor gets thrown to the bottom of a canyon pit because of it. That's just a food for thought. You could use that as a plot hook. It would be fun. Thankfully, when it comes to cultural views on the pursuit of magic, we have enough diversity to keep things interesting by region, but enough similarity for it to still feel like a common international view within the 7 or so monocultures in Conan. Instead of being divided by nation, these are divided by large chunks of the Hyborian world that all kind of talk to each other and know each other through the arts, organized crime, and diplomacy. Assuming the person from the cultures mentioned on the following list believes that magic exists, you can assume that in the world of Mayapan, including the Intilla Isles, the continent far across the Western Ocean, as well as the Pictish wilderness, they view magic as a job or way of life. If you know magic, you must also be the local healer or religious leader of your small tribe. Most of western Hyboria, such as Asgard, Vanaheim, Cimmeria, Argos, Zingara, Nemedia, and Aquilonia, view magic as generally evil, associating most of it with either criminal trickery or death-bringing curses. The Middle Eastern world, such as Stygia, Shem, Tehran, Iranistan, Zamora, and Kashan, with the addition of the western nations of long-fallen Hyperborea and Roman-based Koth and Ophir, view magic's pursuit as a form of high culture, which symbolizes their advanced society compared to other peoples which they deem mentally inferior or savage. In the deep southwest of Hyboria, such as the Black Kingdoms, Darfar, the Black Coast, and Punt, magic is viewed as a form of self-defense, similar to needing a knife to defend yourself from a beast. Well, in this case, you must defend yourself from demons with divine or demonic power of your own. This is with the exception of Zimbabwe, which views magic similarly to the northwestern nations, holding a proud warrior culture. This view is once again shared by Vendhaya, who mainstream culture in generally that nation has a fear of necromancy so ingrained into them it is a law that all dead must be burned lest they raise from the ground to harm the innocent. A loophole in this culture is found in Kosala, which through their worship of their blood god Yajur allows for the free practice and learning of magic so long as it does not use necromancy and can be applied to the military. Eastern Hyrcania differs by individual tribe, whether magic is accepted as part of the practices in the culture, or whether it perhaps is rejected fully. The same can be said of coastal post-Lemurian Yamatai. The culture there differs by village, so you could have one village that is like, oh yay, a sorcerer, and another village is like, boo, sorcerer. Lastly, and perhaps most unique, is the philosophy of the Scarlet Circle in the large Far Eastern Empire of Kitai, where magic is seen as proof of one's right to rule and royal ancestry, something an egomaniacal sorcerer would be very happy about. The royal family of Kitai, as well as other rival popular families, are the ones who control the education on and distribution of magical knowledge, with the Emperor of Kitai also said to be the most powerful sorcerer in the nation, also leading the Scarlet Circle. Each powerful family views the others as organized crime pretenders to the throne. This, of course, is symbolized by the cult of Yun, who has had a myriad thousand of failed assassination attempts on the head of the Scarlet Circle, the Emperor, who may also, this whole failed assassination attempts, as a side note, if you want to know more, go to the God series, but Yun may also be the King in Yellow, and the failed part of the failed assassinations may be part of a plan to bring about the far-off dreams to reality from his realm. If we didn't cover a specific nation you want looked into, please post below, but also try to tell its view from the general regions we just covered here. I think you'll be able to piece it together, but also don't worry because we will cover each school in this series, and when we do, we will be going over how each one differs based on the tradition you learned it from. Kitai necromancy, which is often about communicating with the dead, differs from Middle Eastern and Western necromancy, which is about summoning flesh abominations, for example. Of course, if you want to summon your own flesh abominations, you'll need today's sponsor, Ronin Craft. Ronin Craft is an independent 3D model printing service known for its excellent quality on Etsy. With specialization in both sci-fi and fantasy, he's your one-stop shop for all your weird fiction needs. Because with Ronin Craft, you'll get quality that surpasses any master. I have no way of knowing how off-script I went when reading this to you all in the future, or what side tangents I went on, but this will likely be the only fully scripted video in this series, with most following the 20% scripted, 80% podcast format you've come to know and love through the Gods and Conan series I did. I know sometimes I can seem pretty grouchy in the comments, but I really do appreciate and am grateful for the attention these videos get. Just by watching, many of you are helping support me in ways that are indescribable. Even though it's not much compared to a real paycheck, we just happened to top my second highest earning month 2 months in a row through AdSense. When I started this channel, I was a lonely Lovecraft fan who just wanted to throw videos out there to see what would really happen, like if I did it. Being an anti-materialist, I also had nothing to spend any of the money I would make from these videos, on. Through this channel, I have met people I like hanging out with, people I connect to, people I genuinely call my friends. I know it's uncharacteristic of me to put my own life in these videos, but especially with the health problems I've experienced this year, such as the non-differentiated liposarcoma, which is a very rare form of cancer that caused an 8-pound tumor to grow in my abdomen. That's my abdomen, not my stomach. People always get it confused. It was not stomach cancer, it was in my abdomen. That thankfully both surgery and chemotherapy were very effective on, and now the PCN bag connected to my right kidney, which limits my mobility around the house, and the reason I have an entirely altered exercise routine now, has been a huge boon for me. My life is not without struggles, but the positive stuff, the good stuff, has been because of all of you. For that, you have my eternal thanks, love, and gratitude. A final thank you as well to the Story So Far on Patreon for shouting my page out. He's a wonderful creator who primarily covers Eberron lore in a classic sword and sorcery style. You should check him out. It was very kind. Thank you all for watching, and as always, have a lovely night.